What is up, everybody? It is your boy Farai, back again with another question and answer video, man. I hope you're having a great week. Shout out to everyone for the ongoing support, man, and I'm here to answer some of the questions in the comment section.
Nice.
So let's get straight into it. Also, make sure to smash like as well as to subscribe and check out some of my other videos. Let's get it. First question, William Beats asks, when mixing a song, do you prefer mixing with the separate track stems of an instrumental or the full composition? That is a good question, and it really depends. Sometimes producers make such beautiful sounding beats that you don't really have to touch them. You know, once in a while I get a beat that just sounds amazing and you don't have to do any sort of processing on it, any sort of adjustments on it. It just sounds good. And you receiving the stems, actually sometimes the stems sound worse. You know, sometimes the producer may have had like a plugin on that he disabled, and then you got the stems and then the whole mix just falls apart, right? In those instances, you definitely just want to decide, if I receive a full project from somebody and I have the choice between the 2-track beat, right, the mastered version, and then the stems, and then the 2-track sounds better, I'm not going to worry about the stems. I might even just use the stems for parallel compression or something, or I may not use them at all. A lot of the times the artist just likes to hear the beat that they were hearing while they were recording, and that may have been the 2-track. There may also be time constraints, right? If we have a day to finish a mix, I'm not really going to be concerned about mixing the stems because it's going to take too long to try and get the stems to beat the 2-track instrumental sometimes, you know, so it really depends. So if the 2-track sounds better, I'll keep it. If I know that I can get the mix sounding wider and sounding better, and I personally have a relationship with the producer and I can ask him, hey man, could you put back the EQ on the kick drum? Because a lot of the times producers might disable everything on their tracks, which I don't think is a good idea. Leave all the stems as is with the levels, don't leave anything off. I think it's more so with vocals that we would want vocals without any effects besides auto-tune, for example, so that we can really treat the vocals right. But with beats, I'm pretty happy with really good sounding 2-tracks. So hopefully that answers your question. Obviously, if the 2-track sounds horrible and I know that we can get it better sounding, we'll use the stems, but many variables. Derek Chapman asks, good information. My question is, my setup is good, but I'm kind of lost. Like, my setup is a Focusrite ISO 1 preamp going into an Art Pro VLA compressor and going to a Focusrite 18i8 audio interface, but I don't get a good thick sound without having to turn up the compressor, and then my recording comes out looking like it's clipping. So yeah, that is a good question. So basically what I've learned is, man, no matter what gear you have, no matter what microphone or preamp you have, it really comes down to how you're performing, especially in the vocal tones that you're trying to sing in. So for example, I've learned to sing more with my chest because any microphone can become a bit too shrill sounding, a bit too bright sounding, a bit too thin sounding if you sing into it with a more kind of bright tone. Do you get what I'm saying? So when I speak with my voice, it's a chest voice, so that way the microphone is picking up a nice warmer sounding tone. That's the thing I've learned. Adding a compressor, I think the art and the preamp you have is amazing, and then the compressor you have, I think, is a tube style preamp, so that should be giving you a good tone. What I would try and maybe kill off some of the high frequencies in your room. If you are recording in a bare room, maybe that's also contributing towards a thinner sounding vocal, but yeah, generally dead room, warmer sounding voice is always going to give you that smoky kind of sound. And yeah, you haven't said what microphone you have, so I don't know if the microphone could be like a Rode, for example. Rodes are definitely more bright than they are warm. But yeah, test different things out. Maybe try even using a Pultec EQ within the DAW. There's a free one called the PTEQX, I think, and basically it's emulating a Pultec, and what you can do is you can go to the attenuation on the treble and then reduce it on the 20,000 hertz mark, and it's actually going to make the vocal a bit warmer. But yeah, man, I always try and go for tone first, so I would just change the way you sing, try and find beats that are maybe a bit lower sounding, and kind of figure out ways to get that sound without adding any plugins on. Generally, I wouldn't overcook your preamp unless you already know how to. I think in the last video we did overcook the preamp quite nicely, which was the Kill Zero vocal effect, so you can see how I treat the vocals in that instance. Also try using a DS as well. I know there's a engineer, Leslie Brathwaite, I guess you'd say his surname, uses a de-esser to actually kind of not muddy up the vocal, but just kind of make the vocal sound a bit warmer. It's a really cool trick as well. Waves de-esser. You can try the Fruity multiband as well and just compress some of the treble. Many ways to get a warmer sounding vocal. But yeah, man, hopefully you figure something out. Happy mixing. Fury asks, where did you get those vocals and who is the singer? Eager to know. Alright, so I did a video recently called How to Mix Expensive Sounding Vocals, where I had this really nice Indian vocal, and what you can actually go and check the link in that video. I'll leave it in this video as well if I remember, but it's called Cambridge. Just search on Google if I forget. It's called Cambridge Multitracks, and there's an engineer there whose name I forget right now, but I'm really bad at names if you've been part of the channel for a long time. But there's an engineer who has a website called Cambridge something, I think it's cambridge.mt or something, but it has a whole lot of multitracks that are uploaded every month. Every few months they new multitracks, and it is definitely the paradise for beginning engineers, because you'll be able to download a wide variety of different songs with the full stems and each individual instrument, for example. So it's really a nice place to learn how to mix vocals. And there are not many places on the internet that actually allow you to download stems, right? So you can actually get a full punk mix, punk rock song, you can get a rock song, you can get a hip hop song. There are quite a few hip hop songs on there, and some reggaeton and that kind of thing. And they're full multi tracks, and you can really get in depth on mixing kick drums, mixing your snares, mixing the vocals. And yeah, you should end up with some better results. So check that out. Jared asks, please can you do a low budget mixing video, please, like stock plugins and free plugins, just like a rough basic for beginners? Yeah, so I don't mind doing a beginners video on different plugins to use, but what I would hope people that tune in every week would learn is how to treat a compressor as a compressor. So if you're watching these videos and you see me using a UAD 1176, it doesn't necessarily mean you need a UAD 1176. It basically means that I'm using a leveling amplifier to compress the vocals. So if you start looking at things like that, these tutorials become a lot more enlightening, because you can just understand the bare basics, right? It's just compressor, EQ, compressor, EQ, or whatever the chain would be. You don't have to have expensive plugins, you can use your stock stuff. But yeah, maybe I'll do a video sometime on detailing how to use fruity compressors like some of the counterparts that I have. But yeah, there are also some really cool free plugins as well that you can go and check out. So, if ever for example, you watch a video and you see me using an SSL EQ, you don't have to have the solid state logic SSL EQ. You can just Google free SSL type equalizers, and people out there are on the internet and they are helping everyone find free alternatives to a lot of plugins. So definitely consider that. Don't let me just having paid plugins be the end of your learning curve. Definitely learn how to find alternatives to that. I would use the SSL EQ as much as I'd use the Fruity parametric EQ. It doesn't really matter. I just like having that kind of heritage behind the vocal chains that I make, so that if you're a beginning engineer, you can also learn about all the different brands that are out there. So I think there's much more benefit for me using different varieties of plugins, so that you can really open your eyes to the industry and see what's out there. So yeah, man, hopefully that makes sense. Just keep learning and things will get easier. Yeah, man. Internet God, which is basically asking, what would you add onto your master channel? So yeah, that's a good question. What I'm adding on my master channel is really not too much these days. I am trying to go for more of an approach of trying to get each individual element to sound mastered before it hits the master channel, but I will add one or two things onto the master track. So that would generally be a EQ. So I might want to boost all of the treble, I'm kind of looking at the master bus more as just enhancement more so than correction. So if I feel maybe the track could use more snare and vocal, it's a good idea to then boost the treble on there, right? But not so much to try and fix the vocal on the master channel. So that's kind of what I'm trying to aim for. So I do a lot of the mastering on the vocal chain or whatever, and then try and make the beat sound as beautiful as possible on the instrumental channel. So for those who follow my template format. But yeah, what I'll also do is I will use a limiter, maximizer, whatever I feel is necessary. There are quite a few really nice maximizers that do different styles of loudness. You can use, for example, if you want something really clean, you could use the Ozone 8, which is quite expensive, but it has a really nice maximizer, very clean and transparent, and really takes the peaks quite well. Doesn't really sound like it's pumping too much. Another secret weapon, which unfortunately I think is UAD only. I think you can actually purchase it on its own. though is the Oxford inflator, which is just absolutely insane. I might add a bit of that. It's got this kind of loudness function thing, but it is worth, you know, doing a YouTube on best free limiters for mastering or something, and maybe you'll find something really cool. What you could also add is like 4% sound godizer. That's actually a pretty good tool that I've used once in a while, but mostly it's going to be EQ, just to maybe trim away some of the bass, trim away some of the treble, you know, for example, a 20 hertz high cut roll off, maybe like a 20 hertz low cut roll off, just to get rid of some of the rumble, open up the track a little bit more, you know, boost a little bit of the bass, boost a little bit of the treble, not more than 3 dB generally. But yeah, I'm not doing too much with the master channel. I might even add a stereo enhancer, so you can definitely go check out the, I think it's the A1 stereo enhancer. Is nice just to give your track a bit of kind of space, you know, open up the reverbs a little bit more. You could even add an Acoustica coloring plugin, right? So Acoustica Audio have really nice plugins that add harmonics and add kind of frequency curve to your track to kind of make it emulate an SSL. There's some really cool plugins out there like Bus Color 4, which is also going to give you that same curve of a mixed bus or something. So, you know, definitely check it out. So EQ for toning, limiters for loudness, and then you can use saturation to get more kind of girth out of your track. So hopefully that answers your question. Happy mixes. Sam asks, hey Farai, I got a question. Is it possible to achieve professional, high quality sounding vocals by using only plugins? I'm talking Lil Uzi Vert, Drake, and Roddy type vocals. I watched a video of an engineer explaining why the sound quality is not achievable with only plugins if you're not recording analog. What do you think? Yeah, that is a really good question. Now, I think that the engineer saying that it's impossible to achieve the sound is really not really a discussion that's important, because how many songs have you heard by now that weren't recorded in professional studios? I mean, look at Billie Eilish, look at, you know, for example, XXX, rest in peace. You know, there are many artists, even a lot of famous artists right now, Uzi and Drake. You know, Drake recorded his first album using a Neumann TLM-103 into an M-Audio M-Box interface, and guess what? It was still smash hit music, right? Marvin's Room, I think that was way later into it, but a lot of his earlier stuff that made it onto the Billboard charts were not recorded with high-end gear. So I think that argument is pointless, simply because I think that audio interfaces with microphones under $500 are good enough for you to get your material into the box, and from there on out it really depends on the mix engineer. So a really good engineer, as long as you have recorded your vocals properly, you haven't kind of sat here and recorded the whole album, if you've, you know, recorded in a semi-dead space, an engineer that is well trained in the genre that you're trying to make is going to be able to mix that song and have it sound radio ready. Now, will it benefit from you running that audio that you've recorded with the audio interface into analog gear? Yes. You know, I definitely would say that Billie Eilish has not just recorded in the box. I think that they've sent their stuff to a mastering engineer. I think that maybe even the mix engineers received their vocals and then, you know, pushed it through a compressor. You can benefit from that. But these days, there are so many analog emulations that I don't think your end listener really cares if it was recorded with analog gear. I think they care more about the song. I think they care more about the vibe of the track and that kind of thing. So yeah, man, I definitely think having analog gear is nice. I think it's motivational for me, for example. I really like having the microphone, the preamp and that kind of thing. But if you strip me of all of this stuff today, I think I would just relearn with whatever equipment I have. If you left me out in the field with you know, the cheapest gear, I'd still be able to make decent sounding records, because, you know, we really love what we do. So yeah, gear doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Is it necessary? No. There's so many songs on the radio today that weren't done with professional gear. So, you know, there you go. The 80s as well, I think there was a lot of cheap songs that came out that became very popular. So, you know. Josh asks, I recently set up a home studio, but what's this -6, -24? Why record at those levels? I'm just doing research. What's the difference? How does recording at -24 dB differ from 0 dB? Okay, so that is a good question for all you beginners out there. And if you are starting off and you're struggling to understand at what level you should record at, so the first thing I would say is, firstly, we measure sound in decibels, okay? That's how we can look at peak level, okay? And that's just basically a reference for if we are distorting or not. Okay, so within a computer you have up to 0 dB before you would technically, actually I'm lying, in the real world we only have up to 0 dB until we start hearing audible distortion. Okay, within the box you can actually record as loud as you want, but it is a good idea to not try and compress your stuff or try and record your stuff excessively loud, because if you record your vocals and they hit over 0 dB on your microphone preamplifier or your audio interface, you're not going to be able to remove that graininess, that kind of cheapness that has been added to your vocal. So that's why when we record, we teach people to record at minus 18, minus 12 or minus 6 at max, so that we have the extra headroom to actually, you know, compress your stuff, EQ your stuff, and manipulate your audio in a way that, you know, you're not working backwards now. Because imagine I receive a vocal that's heavily distorted, I have to spend about 2 hours to try and make that distortion sound good. Okay, whereas if you had just recorded your vocals at minus 6, I would have been able to just say, cool, they sound good to me, and then I would have been able to mix. So, you know, that's why we use lower levels as a reference, because it gives us headroom to then work our magic. You know what I mean? So it's just a safety net. You know, sometimes you might have such a beautiful audio take and then you distort it and then it doesn't sound good. So for example, right now I'm recording this voice at, I don't know, probably like minus 18, and that way I can then use a limiter later on to make it louder for YouTube. So yeah, man, definitely research videos such as gain staging within FL Studio or gain staging within Pro Tools or whatever, so you can learn more about it. Happy mixing. RJ Will says, for the SSL, any console analog emulation, Acoustica plugins have been on point. I've been trialing the Sand 3 plugin and it's golden. Even the Neve emulation in Gold 3 is lit. Yes, so for the super nerds out there, this may not be for the beginners, Acoustica plugins are pretty crazy plugins. They're using convolution technology to create emulations of full mixing consoles. So in my opinion, they do sound a bit better than the plugin alliance stuff, for example, but not actually better, just different. I would say that Acoustica get analog grit sounding better than plugin alliance, but in my opinion, plugin alliance get critical mixing better, because they're still running kind of digital plugins, whereas Acoustica plugins are great for mix bus, you know, maybe one specific element in your mix, but they do run really heavy on CPU, so it does become quite a mission to use them sometimes, especially when you're running thin on resources. But man, do they sound good, and they're definitely worth it. So for the super nerds out there, definitely wait until maybe like Easter or something, until they're having a sale, and pick up at least one Acoustica plugin. I would highly recommend Sand 3. It is the SSL emulation, and it comes with a kind of full console's worth of channel emulation, so you can actually slap all of these on your different elements within the mix to kind of emulate a console. It also comes with a SSL style compressor, SSL style EQ, as well as preamp emulations, as I said. Gold 3 as well, if you want the real Neve sound, definitely worth it. Sounds amazing. I use them in amongst the UAD, plugin alliance, you know, the SSL, whatever it is. They work really well and I quite enjoy them, so check them out. K-Stone asks, I've been using a mic that records a lot of white noise, and I've started recording vocals with my phone, and I find that there's less white noise with it. What do you think? So yeah, that is a good question. So really cheap condenser microphones, like I have a Behringer C1, will usually have more audible white noise or just hiss than standardized microphones. And why is that? I would think it's because they're using cheaper components, and they're also not really quality control testing these microphones. A lot of the times when you buy a more high-end microphone, and that's most microphones these days, I mean Rode, SE, all of the brands, Audio-Technica, they're all doing advanced troubleshooting before actually sending these microphones out, quality control, etc. They're making sure that these microphones are up to par, because obviously they've got a brand name to uphold. So that's why, you know, when you buy a really cheap, for example, USB microphone, it might be pretty noisy. Okay, but in general, even the Blue Snowballs and stuff, they're not that noisy. You know, I listen to a lot of people on Twitch using the Blue Yeti, and it sounds amazing. There's no noise, you know, so certain condenser microphones sound good. Condenser microphones pick up more, so there is more of a chance that you're going to be picking up computer noise, whatever noise they may be. But the thing with cell phones is that cell phones are pre-tuned in a way that they've got a curve that is basically tuned for voice. So that's why you might be feeling like, wow, the voice is sticking out more, because the cell phone microphone is actually cutting off a lot of the bass, cutting off a lot of the excessive treble, and it is making the vocals sound a bit more smooth. So if that works for you, then try it out. I would think it doesn't sound that good. I would think it would sound more telephony, because it's cutting off so much bass, and that's where having a condenser microphone benefits you, because you can choose how much bass to cut off. You know what I mean? So that's the thing with condenser microphones, is it's going to pick up more, but it's also going to pick up more of a bad performance. It's also going to pick up more of any issues you have in your room. So if cell phone works for you, then use it. I'm a fan of like DIY, so if it works for you, use it. There's really no wrong answer. D-Lane Pacmani, I guess, asks, question though, did you not do a high pass filter on the parametric EQ because you already did that on the SSL EQ, or you just felt the vocals didn't need it? Shout out Notification Squad. Yeah, that is a good question. One thing that I've been learning to do is not to high pass so many times over. So, you know, when you high pass once, I think that's good enough. Sometimes you may want to high pass twice. Just know that every time you high pass, you do change the quality of your vocals. So, you know, if I really feel the need to high pass, I'll do it. The one beautiful thing of different plugins and their high pass filters is that they all sound different, all right? Especially on mastering, you're going to hear sometimes I may want to use the Fruity Parametric EQ2 because I like the way it reduces the bass. Sometimes I may want to use an SSL style EQ because I like the naturalness of it. So it really comes down to, you know, how bassy your vocals sounding if you actually want to reduce more of it. But generally what I'll do these days is I'll do one high pass in the box, and then I will rather use a shelving EQ to remove some of the bass. I don't feel a need to high pass twice. So maybe on the vocal bus I might high pass twice if I really want to just do everything at once. But there are many ways to do it. If it sounds good, do it. Those are all of the questions that I can answer this week. Definitely feel free to ask any production related questions below in the comments section. Also check out the web store for my vocal recording course, vocal mixing course, and vocal enhancer if you want to learn how to mix vocals like a beast in FL Studio. But nonetheless, man, hope you have a great week, and I'll check out next time. Peace out.